Book of Wisdom from the Apocrypha, chapter 18. The slaughter of the firstborn in Egypt, the efficacy of Aaron's intercessions in the sedition of occasion of Kor. But thy saints had a very great light, and they heard their voice indeed, but they did not see their shape. And because they also did not suffer the same things, they glorified thee. And they that before had been wronged gave thanks, because they were not hurt now, and asked this gift that there might be a difference. Therefore they received a burning pillar of fire for a guide all the way which they knew not. And thou gavest them a harmless son of a good entertainment. The others indeed were worthy to be deprived of light, and imprisoned in darkness, who kept thy children shut up, by whom the pure light of the law was to be given to the world. And whereas they thought to kill the babies of the just, one child being cast forth and saved, to reprove them, thou tookest away a multitude of their children, and destroyed them altogether in a mighty water. For that night was known before by our fathers, that assuredly, knowing that what oaths they had trusted to, they might be of better courage. So thy people received the salvation of the just and the destruction of the unjust. For as thou didst punish the adversaries, so thou didst also encourage and glorify us. For the children of good men were offering sacrifices secretly, and they were unanimously ordered a law of justice, that the just should receive both good and evil alike, singing now the praises of their fathers. But on the other side there sounded an ill-according cry of the enemies, and the lamentable mourning was heard for the children that were bewailed. And the servant suffered the same punishment as the master, and the common man suffered in a like manner as the king. So all alike had innumerable dead, with one kind of death. Neither were the living sufficient to bury them, for in one moment the noble offspring of them was destroyed. For whereas they would not believe anything before by reason of the enchantments, then first upon the destruction of the firstborn they acknowledged the people to be of God. For while all things were in quiet silence, and the night was in the midst of her course, thy almighty word leapt down from heaven and from thy royal throne as a fierce conqueror into the midst of the land of destruction, with a sharp sword carrying thy unfeigned commandment. And he stood and filled all things with death, and standing on the earth reached even to heaven. Then suddenly visions of evil dreams troubled them, and fear unlooked for came upon them. The one thrown there, another there, one thrown here, another there, half dead, showed the cause of his death. For the visions that troubled them foreshowed these things, lest they should perish, and not know why they suffered these evils. But the one also were afterwards touched by an assault of death, the just also. And there was a disturbance of the multitude in the wilderness, by thy wrath did not long continue. For a blameless man was made haste to pray for thy people, bringing forth the shield of his ministry, prayer, and by incense making supplication, withstood the wrath and put an end to the calamity, showing that he was thy servant. And he overcame the disturbance, not by strength of body, nor by force of arms, but with the word he subdued them that punished them, alleging the oaths and covenants made with their fathers. For when they were now fallen down dead by heaps one upon another, he stood between and stayed the assault, and cut off the way to the living. For in the priestly robes which he wore was the whole world, and in the 4 rows of thy stones the glory of thy fathers was graven, and thy majesty was written upon the diadem of his head. And to these the destroyer gave place, and was afraid of them, for the proof only of wrath was enough. Whew. Oh, we only have one chapter left and then we're done. So let's read it. Wisdom chapter 18. Why God showed mercy to the Egyptians, his favor to the Israelites. All creatures obeyed God's orders for the service of the good and the punishment of the wicked. But as to the wicked, even to the end there came upon them wrath without mercy, for he knew before also what they should do. For when they had given them leave to depart, and he sent them away with great care, they repented and pursued after them. For whilst they were yet mourning and lamenting at the graves of the dead, they took up another foolish device and pursued them as fugitives, whom they had pressed to be gone. For a necessity of which they were worthy brought them to this end, and they lost the remembrance of those things which had happened, that their punishment might fill up what was wanting to their torments. And that thy people might wonderfully pass through, but they might find a new death. For every creature according to its kind was fashioned again as from the beginning, obeying thy commandments, that thy children might be kept without hurt. For a cloud overshadowed their camp, and where water was before, dry land appeared, and the Red Sea in a way without hindrance, and out of the great deep a springing field, through which all the nations passed, which was protected with thy hand, seeing thy miracles and wonders. For they fed upon their food like horses, and they skipped like lambs, praising thee, O Lord, who hast delivered them. For they were yet mindful of those things which had been done in their time of sojourning, how the ground brought forth flies instead of cattle, and how the river cast up a multitude of frogs instead of fishes. And at length they saw a new generation of birds, when being led by their appetite they asked for delicate meals. For to satisfy their desire the quail came up to them from the sea, and punishments came upon sinners, not without foregoing sins by the force of thunders. For they suffered justly according to their own wickedness. For they exercised a more detestable inhospitality than any. Others indeed received not strangers unknown to them, but these brought their guests into bondage that had deserved well of them. And not only so, but in another respect also they were worse. For the others against their will received the strangers. But these grievously affected them whom they had received with joy, and who lived under the same law. But they were struck with blindness, as though others were at the doors of the just man, when they were covered with sudden darkness, and everyone sought the passage of his own door. For while the elements had changed in themselves, as in an instrument the sound of the quality is changed, yet all keep their sound, which may be clearly be perceived by the very sight. For the things of the land that turned into the things of the water, and the things that before swam in the water passed upon the land. The fire had power in water above its own virtue, and the water forgot its quenching nature. On the other side, the flames wasted not the flesh of corruptible animals walking therein, neither did they melt that good food, which was apt to melt as ice. For in all things thou didst magnify thy people, O Lord, and did honor them, and didst not despise them, but didst assist them at all times and in every place. The end.